Americans want the immigration bill. That, according to a new poll conducted by the New York Times and CBS. But do Americans really know what it will cost? Michael Franc is Vice President of Government Affairs at the Heritage Foundation, and research done by his organization says it will cost taxpayers $1.1 million for each immigrant family. Stephen Moore of the Wall Street Journal says that's absolute rubbish, and that their analysis is based on outdated myths. Guys, good to see you. Michael, I'm going to let you go first. It was one of your guys who testified in front of Congress with these very numbers. Make your case. Where does $1.1 million come in terms of cost for the taxpayers?
Well, this is a different kind of wave of immigration than we've had in the past. First of all, the immigrants coming in are disproportionately high school dropouts and lower skilled, and that actually means that they have a lower set of skills relative to the U.S. population. That was not the case in previous waves of immigration. Second, we have a welfare state. We have a big welfare state. And especially in recent years, the welfare state has been configured to provide enormous amounts of support for the working poor, for the low-wage workers who may work full-time, but nevertheless get all kinds of other kinds of assistance. And what Robert Rector did from the Heritage Foundation is he looked at the amount of taxes paid by typical high school dropout households headed by immigrants and how much they receive in benefits. The differential is about $19,000 per year. And that's per household. That's a lot of money, and it cuts across a range of benefits, and that's a big cost on the American taxpayer.
And then you spread it over the years, and you get that big
numbers. You add it up over a
Yes.
lifetime, especially as you get toward the later years when they've qualified for Medicare, Social Security, and those kinds of programs.
Stephen, holes in their arguments?
Well, look, I mean, Mike is absolutely right that the higher skilled immigrants are clearly more of a benefit to our economy than the lower skilled immigrants. Higher skilled immigrants have higher earnings, so they pay more in taxes. I think there are two problems with the Heritage study. One is, thanks to groups like Heritage Foundation, 10 years ago we passed welfare reform. And one of the things welfare reform did was really change the eligibility of immigrants to a lot of these programs. And we showed in our editorial the other day that, in fact, there's been a real drop-off in the amount of welfare that immigrants are collecting. There's been about a 50 or 60% decline in welfare use by immigrants. The other big part of this picture, I think, that Heritage misses is the real big advantage of immigration is that immigrants pay far more into the Social Security system than they take out of it. And when you take into account those payroll tax payments that they make, they become a big benefit.
And Michael, does this number take into account the benefits that we get, say, from cheap labor, when we can say definitively that Americans spend a smaller percentage of their income on food compared to, say, the Europeans, because we have all this cheap labor, say, in the farming industry or, say, in the housing industry?
Well, it doesn't do that kind of analysis, but frankly, in order for the number, the 1.1 million number, to become zero or a net gain, this would have to be more of a pro-growth economic impetus than cutting capital gains rates or lowering marginal tax rates or getting rid of the death tax. And it's not that much of an economic boost from this. You get some help at the margins, but overall, what we have is a welfare state that's essentially super glue, and it keeps people down. And once they assimilate into that, which is what we found, and Robert's numbers, by the way, are Census Bureau numbers that take actual reported data from immigrant households themselves. So immigrants, when they assimilate...
Stephen, isn't that one of the problems, too? I mean, especially if we're talking about illegal immigrants that are avoiding the census and trying to stay away out of the government's eyes?
Well, this looks at actual immigrants who are reported in the Census Bureau database, citizens and non-citizens alike, and in the aggregate, it's about $89 billion a year today. Immigrant households, high school dropouts, $89 billion more received than paid in taxes.
Got it, guys. Mike, we got to go. Michael Franc, thank you so much. Stephen Moore on this hot issue that I'm sure is going to continue. We're going to go right to